I am Jackie Yang. I am coordinator of the Housing Affordability Coalition. We are absolutely delighted that we have with us this evening just a whole lot of new people that we have not seen and participated in. This is attributed, I think, to our outreach efforts to engage more people in the coalition and helping increase the voice of uh, advocates for affordable housing, and particularly increase awareness of why we need more affordable housing in our county. Um, I'd like to introduce, I think, Dana, you're going to take it from here and give us a reason as to why the coalition exists and a little perspective about the housing crisis the county's now facing.
Happy to do it. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you again for everybody who is attending tonight, and to everybody else who wanted to be here and could not. Again, we will share materials tomorrow, so stay tuned for those. I am one of the members of the steering committee of the Housing Affordability Coalition. As we do every coalition meeting that we hold, we start with just a recap of our concern about our community as it's reflected in the housing market, which we believe is, and most of the data shows, is dysfunctional and it's inequitable for a large number of our county residents. We think the data shows that quite clearly, and we'll just give you a quick recap of that just as a way of grounding everyone in the concern and the imperative that we do something about this now. And so let's start with the fact that the state of our market is the direct result of conscious county policies that limit housing production far below our needs. That's where all of this pain begins. It begins with conscious county policies set by our elected leaders. We don't build enough housing, period, in our community for all the workers who live here or who are working here and want to live here. In fact, the real estate advisors who have studied this problem for Howard County estimate that the current shortage of homes is about 20,000 for members of the workforce. And projecting forward for the job growth that's expected through the year 2040, the estimate is that we need another 31,000 homes. So we've got a current shortage of 20,000, expected shortage of an additional 31,000. And if you look at the numbers that county policy will allow to be built, we're nowhere near the need. And so when the county policies determine that we're not going to build enough housing for all of the workers that we attract to the community, what happens is we create scarcity as a community. And like any other essential commodity, whether it's asparagus or cars or eggs or housing, if it's scarce, there's going to be a competition for it, and that's going to drive prices up. So we'll start with the renter view. So if you're a renter and know somebody who wants to rent in Howard County, one of the market standards across a community's rental community is that, or rental complexes, is that a pretty healthy vacancy rate is around 5%. That means that somebody's looking to rent an apartment or a home has some choice, and landlords don't have undue leverage to reject candidates unless they have perfect background, financial, credit score and the like. And it keeps rents under control. So a healthy rate is about 5%. Our vacancy rate is 1.5%, which puts the landlords in the driver's seat to reject anybody with any blemish on their background. So if you make a mistake as a young person, as many of us have done as young people with your finances, that haunts you. It's weaponized against you by the credit system for years and can make your housing choices very limited or non-existent. And landlords, in addition to being quite selective about who they will rent to because they've got 9 other people lined up hoping to rent the same place, they're able, with this low vacancy rate, to drive rents up. And that's what's been happening. If you rent or know somebody who rents, we are seeing rent increases of 30%, $400, $500 a month, and multiply that out over 12 months to $5,000, $6,000 extra dollars in rent, and think about, okay, how much more money would that tenant need to earn in order to make, that rent payment every month? You can see how people can get into crisis pretty quickly. If you look at these rents and then you just provide or apply some basic kind of rule of thumb math to determine, well, what income is really needed to make those rents affordable. Essentially, we're taking the rent, we're adding some utilities, we're multiplying by 12 for the 12 months in the year, and then we're essentially multiplying by about 3. That gives you an affordable an affordability calculation. So in the case of let's say the 2-bedroom, which is renting on average for $1,865 a month, you really should be making about $75,000 total in the household for that rent plus utilities over the course of a year to be affordable. And if it's a 3-bedroom, you need about $100,000 now for that to be affordable. Now, obviously, everybody stretches, everybody aspires to rent the place that they want to rent, and people will certainly stretch to afford what a landlord is charging, but there's only so far you can stretch. And we are quite concerned about the renter community in Howard County. There's about 32,000 renter households. It's 1 in 4 households in Howard County. So this is a large group of people in our community. And if we look at the rental costs that these households are paying, about 18,500 of them, in fact, a little bit more than a majority, are doing fine. They're paying an affordable rate, about 30% or less of gross income. So no worries with those households. But we have 6,500 households now approximately that are paying somewhere between 31 and 50% of gross income, and another 6,800 that are paying over 50% of gross income. And let me just stop and explain 50% of gross income. That means every dollar of money that you earn at the top of your pay stub before taxes, before medical, before transportation costs, childcare, food, saving for emergency, saving for retirement, 50 cents of every gross dollar goes out to the landlord or more. Community Action Council, which is a member of the coalition, they're reporting that they're seeing clients calling for help because their rental costs are now 80% of their income. And this goes beyond stretching to an aspirational home. This goes beyond, goes to the point where families and their ability to thrive and succeed and care for their children and provide the enrichment and so forth for their kids are being squeezed. And what's very concerning, if you add up these 12,500 households paying unaffordable rents, it's getting worse. This trend is not going in a good direction. The number of households in these categories has increased by 1/3 since 2010. And the math is real simple in that rents are rising much faster than wages. Moody's, the credit agency, just put out a report today that you can find if you just Google Moody's rental costs, and you'll see that this is a phenomenon not just in Howard County, it's across the United States, especially in higher income areas. So renters are getting squeezed, and if you're in the home buying market, prices there have escalated as well because, boy, talk about a scarcity of homes. The median price for a home now is, I think the last number I saw was about $520,000, and really, if you earn less than the median income in Howard County, you really don't have a shot at home ownership unless somebody wealthy has left you some money, or you buy that winning lottery ticket. 40% of Howard County families can't afford to buy any home. And if you break it down a little bit further and find out, okay, at what level of income is, can you afford something? Probably the oldest 2-bedroom resale townhome, downtown Columbia, probably original construction from when Columbia was founded. Yeah, you could get into that for, with income around $111,000. Well, only 60% of Howard County households earn that much. The other 40%, just can't touch even that. And then if you want a yard or a larger townhouse or a larger townhouse with a yard, you can see how the income requirements go go up and up and up, and the number of families, or the percentage of families who can actually get into a home like that, goes down. And all of the new construction, almost all of the new construction, is very, very high end, over 3,000 square feet. Townhouses running from $700,000, $800,000 now. That's not unusual if you drive around the county. So this is a reflection of the fact that, again, these county policies have limited the amount of housing, created scarcity, caused intense competition between renters and potential home buyers. And who gets squeezed out? You know, it's the people who are already vulnerable, people of color who has generally are earning lower incomes than whites and Asian residents of the community, fixed income seniors, people living with disabilities. In fact, you know, you just look across all of these groups of people in the county: seniors, people with disabilities, lower wage members of our workforce, young adults who can't launch, young families who can't get established here, public sector employees, you know, starting teachers, paraeducators, members of the nonprofit community who are delivering services to clients every day, serving all of these people, serving our community. Just, you know, come back to the first bullet here. It all starts with the county policies that limit the amount of housing that we can produce. And this is our county government putting a very heavy finger on the scale and deciding that we're not going to provide enough housing, a proper housing for everybody who's serving or wants to serve the community, but isn't fortunate enough to earn the higher and higher salaries that are required to live here. To me, that's the very definition of dysfunction and inequity. Government policy that chooses winners, that chooses people with higher income, and determines that they have a shot at appropriate housing and others do not. So this is the backdrop to tonight's meeting. We believe is a fair reflection of our housing market, how we got here, who it's impacting, and we've got to do something about it. So with that context, I want to turn it back to Jackie, who's going to give you some brief background about the coalition and our proposals to address this mess that we find our housing market to be in.
Thank you, Dana. Really good background and some good comments in the chat, by the way, that are very much appreciated and indicate you all know what's going on. So just really quickly, the coalition started 5 years ago with 3 people sitting at a table saying, what can we do? And our bottom line at that point was there was a great deal of divisiveness in terms, it was just after redistricting in the schools. And there was a lot of competition between housing and schools. We can't build housing if there's schools are over capacity. So just a lot of tension. And 3 or 4 of us sat around a table and said, what can we do to dial down the dialect, get information out, understand how do we address this? Because clearly certainly we want to maintain the quality of schools and we want to make sure our children's educations are good, but we also need housing. And how do we do that? So that was kind of the seed from which the coalition grew. And since that time, we have a steering committee of 15 people that have an incredible, I am so privileged to work with them, background and experience in housing, whether it's financing, whether it's services, case management, whether it's development, whatever, just an amazing array of not only experience, but strong compassion for who we need housing for, trying to make a difference in the community. So I just want you to know that we are blessed to have this group of people working with us. And from the get-go, our goal has been to do our activities and to try to make a difference and try to, bottom line, create more affordable housing. We look at legislation, we do research, we look at best practices, we look at the studies, we try to find out what's worked elsewhere, what might work here. we look particularly and the joy of having many of you with us tonight for the first time is we are looking to partner either individually or certainly with organizations with whom you work so that we can expand the voice, if you will, that's speaking on behalf of affordable housing. We also have started doing toe in the water, but some educational webinars. You may or may not have just gotten a video from us that Carmen told her story. And we are creating a series of videos that we will share not only with our community of advocates such as you, but also with the county council and others in the community to try to let them hear from people who are experiencing homelessness or experiencing living on the edge, what it's like. Because a lot of us, as someone told me earlier today, they continually, work with people who say, why do we have a food bank out of our church? We're the wealthiest county in, one of the wealthiest counties in the country. People do not understand that there is a large population of our community that is not so well off, that is struggling just to make ends meet. So we are working hard to develop our capacity to educate and work with organizations particularly who want to help us reach out and educate their constituencies, their staff, their board, their volunteers, whatever, to help make a difference. We now are at, from our little gathering around a lunch table, we have 41 organizational members and over 500 individual members and allies. And we are very grateful for all of you and others in the community who have stepped up to help reinforce the message, the impact of the coalition. So our current focus, we live in a world of legislation, of other things happening in the community. Our current focus is the update of our county's general plan, and then it's got a name called HOCO by Design. And the general plan is, as the slide said, is essentially a roadmap for housing and other infrastructure. It touches on environment, it touches on transportation, it touches on water and sewer. And it is essentially a policy document that is created every 10 years. And this one will take us to 2040. And it's been around since 1960. The county will now, it's been through a 2.5, almost 3-year process of developing a draft plan, gone through a lot of public input. There is now a draft plan that will go to the council, and I want to say will be introduced later this week. And then between now and the fall, there will be public hearings and consideration work sessions by the county council. Our focus right now, and you'll hear us come back to this, is the first public hearing, which will be June 15th. And we anticipate and certainly hope that there will be a final vote by the county council on adopting the HOCO by Design, the next general plan update, in early October. And that will kind of set the pace going beyond that. So that's where our focus is now for the coalition. As we look at the plan and other documents that have been developed, we are really strong messages that come out are that we are at 2 critical inflection points right now as a county. One of them is that we have an unhealthy jobs housing balance. Dana showed the data before that says we already have a shortage of 20,000 units, affordable units in our county for our workforce, for our seniors. And if we have projected growth, that we're going to need, another 30,000 housing units. The second inflection point is that, and this is our spending affordability committee, which is appointed by the county administration and meets annually and now is meeting more often. They have said for the last few years that our county's we are in a low growth mode, and the current economy won't sustain the high quality of life and service infrastructures that residents expect, including quality schools. This also means our roads. It means our transportation system. So this current low growth method approach in our world, in our housing world, that is essentially says we don't want to build more. We can't build more housing. We can't begin to build the housing that will keep up with the need. This is going to be a major problem for our county going forward. Fiscally, in addition to meeting the needs of our community. Next, Dana. So our bottom line through all of this is that the county needs new growth. And part of that growth will be housing, because we are told by our business associates and others that you can't attract commercial, you can't attract business if you don't have housing for them. And we need to expand our commercial base. And to do that, we need housing. So we need housing to make sure that we can maintain the services at a quality level that we all tout and are the recipient of in our community. So as we have this HOCO by design, this next general plan update, which is a hundreds of page long document. And one of our goals is to spare all of you from having to read through all of that and try to synthesize what you're thinking or whatever. So we have done that over the past several months, and we have come up with kind of bottom lines of things that absolutely must be included in this next HOCO by Design General Plan update. And the very first thing that we want to make sure is included is that, so background to this for all of you who don't know, that prior to beginning HOCO by Design, there was a 2.5-year effort to develop a housing opportunities master plan. That master plan came up with a series of performance targets and recommendations. And we want to make sure, because they are not now explicitly articulated within HOCO by Design, we want to make sure that those are articulated and they become the policy framework for the county moving forward. And specifically, and our focus right now is that housing growth should be at 2,000 homes per year, a housing allocation of at least 2,000 homes per year. 25% of those homes should be for households earning less than 60% of area median income. 10% should be for those households that are making less than 60%, but who also are experiencing physical accessibility for issues. And we have such a shortage in our community, and I'm sure you all are aware of that. We want to make sure that we have a lot of affordable housing in our community right now, but a lot of it is kind of aging out of their federal loans and et cetera. And what we want to do is make sure that we don't lose one unit of what we have that's currently affordable. So we want to make sure that we maintain that. And again, as you can see, our focus is for households earning less than 60% of median income. Doesn't mean that there isn't need for those at 80% and lower, but our focus is on 60%. And that when we redevelop new housing, that there is, again, a 1-for-1 replacement of affordable units countywide. We don't want to lose anything, but we absolutely need to put in place policies that enable us to stimulate development of at least 2,000 new housing units a year. So within the plan is this land use map. And there's, for those of you who want to delve into the land use map, please let us know. We are very happy to talk one-on-one or in a smaller group about this. But this essentially, number one, identifies where new housing will be developed, where it will be allowed to be developed. And so what we want to do is we have it within the HOCO by design, within the map, they have laid out a series of tools that will enable us to get to our 2,000 optimum level that we are advocating for. And some of these tools include multi-family housing, and that can be like by right, so that you can, in a neighborhood, say, I want to put in a quadplex or a sixplex. There's probably a term that I've completely forgotten there for that. But anyway, small multifamily homes that at least take advantage of small lot sizes that enable us to build. We want to expand. If you could see me, I would point. There's a lot of yellow on the right and some green on the left, and kind of cutting down between those two is something called the planned service area. And there is water and sewage in the county on the right, and there is not in what we call the rural west, water and sewage. And that is very defining in terms of where you can build additional housing. We're just suggesting that there needs to be opportunity to, along that planned service area line, to be able to put in additional complexes, small, large, going forward. And then there are things that I'm sure a lot of you have heard about. The HOCO by design talks about activity centers. Think of a village center that is now just one level retail that might be able to be built up and put some housing in terms of that. Accessory dwelling units, missing middle housing. And then, so those are two things that are often, there's a lot of angst about particularly accessory dwelling units being introduced into communities that are already established. There are really strong, effective ways to put in and not disrupt the character of a community. These ADUs, as they're called, which have been used very successfully across the country. We think that they have a real strong opportunity and a role in the community. And one of our goals is to help people understand better what ADUs can bring to a community and what they won't do to character and land price, your land value, et cetera. Missing middle housing for people that want to be homeowners. There just is so little of it in our county right now. And then the public and private redevelopment projects. We still have public land, and we have structures that the county owns that can be revisited, revised to make them into housing, make them into facilities that they're currently not used for. So these are tools, and our bottom line kind of in this is that there are a lot of tools in this plan that suggest to make a very strong case for that can be used to help us get to that 2,000 level of housing, new housing units that we're speaking to. Big area of the county is our gateway area, which is, somebody jump in here and tell me, 5 times, 10 times the area of Columbia? Dana, do you remember that off the top of your head? It is much larger than our current Columbia.
I think it's double the size of downtown. It's about 1,000.
Double the size of downtown Columbia. This is an area that has a lot of building in it, a lot of open space in it. There is a plan to develop it. What we are suggesting is the HOCO by design currently says this is a good opportunity for helping meet some of these affordable needs, et cetera. We're saying that this plan should absolutely identify the targets. And the plan is to create a master plan for Gateway. We are suggesting that HOCO by Design should actually put the targets in HOCO by Design so that when they start to develop the master plan, they know what they are developing for, what they want to accomplish, and that we think that it needs to be developed sooner than later. Next. So our kind of bottom line is on the right. It shows our growth targets: the 2,000, the 25% affordable, 10% accessible and affordable. And on the right is the summary of the things that we think are the tools to help us get us to the goals that we are advocating for.
So I'm going to pick it back up. So thank you, Jackie, for the quick summary of the recommendations from the coalition that we believe will make the HOCO by Design plan much more robust. And again, set the clear policy framework and targets for the future that I think we all agree that we need in terms of our housing market. All of this has to be approved by the county council. And we don't think it's going to be easy, frankly. If you look at this this image here, the two council members on the left, it's a 5-person council. So we have 2 people here on the left outlined in green who we're very confident that they are going to be supportive of most, if not all, of our recommendations. The 3 representatives highlighted in the reddish color on the right are much more resistant to housing growth for various reasons. And it's not uniform resistance, but if you look at their voting record, you would have reason to believe that they will be supportive of perhaps very little of our, or very few of our recommendations. So the bottom line here is that we have to make it clear to at least one of those 3 representatives through combined voice, through physical presence and other tactics that we're going to talk about here in a minute, that we expect them to vote the right way, that we need their leadership, we need their courage, we need yes on these recommendations. So, it's our belief at the coalition, that's why the coalition exists, is that, our housing crisis can be solved if we all get involved. We believe that that's the only answer for these problems, that we have to show power in terms of the numbers of people making demands of our elected leaders, again, through physical presence, through testimony, and some other tactics that we'll talk about. So Jackie referred to this early in the meeting, that the council has laid out a schedule of public hearings over the next several months, leading up to an expected vote in early October. So you'll see that there are 4 public hearings scheduled. It's possible that more will be added if it's necessary, if the council feels that they haven't heard from enough of the community. We are targeting intensely the first one because that hearing is going to focus very strongly on housing related topics in the plan, as opposed to some of the other elements, transportation and environment, which are important, and it's important that those policies be integrated in a smart way with our housing policies, but we have to focus on housing, and that first hearing on June 14th is really our best shot at making the council aware of how we feel. There will be opportunities in the subsequent hearings. There will be some topics where housing will be an element of the conversation, so it won't be our only shot, but we know that this is a shot here on June 14th, where we have an opportunity to put the council on notice, and as I said, make it very clear to them that we expect them to lead us out of this crisis with some smart policy changes. So what we're suggesting tonight from the steering committee of the coalition is that the tactics that we would like to use for the June 14th meeting, we'll start with a couple of digital tactics. These will be emails that will be coming out to you with calls to action. The first will be essentially a letter that we are putting together to the council, which will summarize and provide necessary supporting detail, all of the elements that Jackie went through, those kind of 3 big categories or buckets of recommendations. So those will be encapsulated in that letter, and the call to action to you would be to simply sign your name on digitally to that letter, and that will go to the council. There will be a second action, again, an email out, which requests that you email the county council as a whole. There's a single email address that they all through which they all receive mail, but feel free to send directly to your council member if you have that kind of relationship and believe that that would be more valuable. These are the kinds of tools where you can simply sign your name to the email that we propose, or you can we would recommend that you modify it and add your story and describe why this issue is so important to you. So stay tuned for those. And now those things will happen ahead of the council hearing. At the council hearing on June 14th, we're going to start with a rally starting at 6:15 outside of the George Howard office building. We are asking people, if you can, be there. Bring a friend. And if you're a member of an organization or one of our local leaders of a organizational member of the coalition, we're asking you to bring people visible. We want to fill the seats and then some in the council hearing room, so that the support from the community for the council's or the coalition's testimony and other testimony that people will deliver that night is very, very evident to the county council members. And then after the rally, we'll go inside and attend the county council public hearing and hear testimony from those who choose to deliver it. We are in the process of putting some signs together that we'll hand those out at the rally, and you'll be able to carry them inside and have them available in the hearing room as well. This is one of them. I'm just going to click and they will just kind of roll through. You'll see a sample of the signage that we're putting together. And for a little bit of humor, we have this one. Not that one, but for this one. So so that's the June 14th council hearing. In terms of visible numbers at the hearing, we think that's all important. And it's so important. All of this data that we provide at every meeting, it can be overwhelming, it can be paralyzing. And at the end of the day, it's probably not very motivating to an elected leader until they are faced with the human being who represents the crisis, the senior living on a fixed income or the low wage workforce member. Think about telling your story. How has the crisis impacted you or a family member or neighbor or whoever? Why do you care about it? And explicitly ask the council to support more housing development. We can help with coaching if you want it. If you don't feel confident about doing this without some preparation or some type of coaching support, we're in the process of putting a session like that together. So stay tuned for an email inviting you to that session, where we'll just help you structure your thoughts, give you a chance to role play, giving the testimony to somebody else in a breakout room, learn from it. And if you feel confident, then you're ready to go and you can sign up to testify. If you don't feel confident, you can still submit the testimony that you put together in written form to the council ahead of the meeting. So those are some opportunities for you to get involved. Hey, I know we're running a little bit behind where we wanted to be, but Dawn is going to put up a quick poll to just get your thoughts about what of these tactics we've presented, what you might be willing to do, what you are able to do, willing to do. So if you would just take a moment, we're not going to share this. We just want to get a sense of the room, basically to understand where we need to focus our efforts and provide supports to the community to make sure that you have an opportunity to make your voice heard with the county council. And I think we can, as that's going on, let's just go ahead and just to save time here, let's get to some Q&A. Dawn, Dawn, do you want to, well, first of all, if anybody has a question that they haven't already put into the chat, if you want to just raise your hand using Zoom, raise your hand, or you can put it into the chat now. Dawn, do you have any questions that you've assembled so far that we can start to address?
Yeah, how are we going to address the objection of overcrowding in our schools, which come up at every meeting?
Yeah, and rightly so. No one wants to harm the schools in order to build housing. I think that I know Jackie would want to provide an answer, but I've been here for 40 years. I've seen the school population double, the overall population triple. I've seen us make room for people before, for children before. I've seen us be much better at that. And for some reason, for the last 10 years, we seem unable or unwilling as a community to do that. We have some recommendations specifically, which I think Jackie will provide.
Yeah, let me just quickly respond that our data show based on, and we address this every time there is a new development planned. And what the data show is that the rental housing is not the major provider of new students in a classroom. So we do have some data. We are actually right now working on with another partner, working on developing the answers to that. So we'll try to keep track of, and we will absolutely share responses to that argument as best we can. But in the end, and let me just say that we had the opportunity to meet with Superintendent Martorano a couple months ago now, 7-8 weeks ago. And he is so supportive of affordable housing. He knows that that the system has students that are living on the edge, that go home to unstable homes for all sorts of reasons and can't perform and can't do well academically. And he essentially said that if there were more housing, then redistricting would not be such a problem, because just because it wouldn't. He wouldn't have to redistrict if there was more housing, more schools, and there is a way. We need to do both. We are not at all opposed to schools or expansion of schools. We happen to think, and one of our recommendations will be that there is in the report, there is a recommendation that speaks to, let's look at how we develop our educational facilities differently. Can we take advantage of facilities that are already there? Do we always have to build the model high school, middle school, elementary school that we have? There are recommendations in the plan that we will support that would help alleviate some of this angst and issue.
I see another question in the chat about development being a 4-letter word in historic Ellicott City because of the impact on the watershed and flooding. No doubt that some development in the past has not been properly managed, has been developed to lesser standards. And as we learn more, I think I would suspect that our county has some of probably the tightest restrictions. I know there's a housing developer in the meeting tonight who could probably confirm that. But look, if you look at the environmental argument for redevelopment, there's a consensus that redeveloping, which involves some reimagining of our spaces, like Jackie just mentioned around schools, but other types of facilities. Redevelopment is an opportunity to address poor design and poor construction, poor water management that's present today in our infrastructure. The idea of denser development, more walkable communities to get cars off the road. These are all good things in communities, and you can visit communities that are adopting these principles and have I think a better sense of the the benefits that come from smart redevelopment. So nobody's suggesting that we just start slapping up a bunch of new homes and not care where the runoff goes. The reality is we're not going to stop growth. We're not going to tell employers to stop hiring. We're not going to tell businesses to stop forming or to stop locating here. we have to manage the people. We just can't pretend that the people aren't coming. They're coming, they're here. If they're not here, many want to be here because they're working here. This is something that a community just has to force itself to do. We have to reimagine our space and our land use and do it in as smart a way as we can do it. But we have to do it. Otherwise, the pain that we inflict on the least fortunate members of our community is absolutely inequitable. We pick winners. We pick the affluent people to win. That's not acceptable any more than, you know, untempered runoff down the main street of Ellicott City is acceptable.
I'm going to and just concur. Remember that around particularly environmental issues, we are much more sensitive now, and there are new regulations impacting building. And we have a process from the generation of an idea to design concept to development impact. We have a process in the county. I think what the coalition is advocating is that we need all perspectives heard, and we need to balance our concerns about the environment with our concerns about our people. And there are ways to do this, and that's what the coalition is pushing for, to try to get a better dialogue so that we can balance, whether it's environment, transportation, health, whatever the needs are. We all need to work together to get the best possible outcome. I'm going to take a quick opportunity to answer Pamela. Your questions are about the Housing Commission. I think we need to talk more about the Housing Commission. Is very involved in developing affordable housing. I know there are some questions about kind of the commission development of the commission properties as it is now. It's kind of not our issue, but I'm happy to help facilitate that conversation. And we need to hear your story. And Pamela, I would like to talk with you offline to see what we can do. And in terms of resources, there just aren't enough in terms of rental assistance, in terms of housing that's affordable. It's really challenging, and Dana, as a Bridges to Housing Stability person, can certainly speak to that. He lives with it every day with their clients. And I would like to talk with you kind of offline. So I will follow up, if you don't mind, with you to kind of see how we can get your voice heard and see if I can help connect you with some resources to help.
I can unmute. Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
So my question is there going to be a recommendation or part of the testimony? Is that going to hold a recommendation for the new buildings that we want to have in the general plan to be electric to protect consumers from the increasing gas costs in Maryland and Howard County?
I'm going to jump in and let others who may have more knowledge. We actually just had a piece of legislation that was considered and is perhaps tabled now, as I recall, from Councilwoman Rigby, that speaks directly to having all new buildings be electric. That is a little more detail, as I understand the purpose of the general plan. But if there is legislation that would codify that, then it would happen. So I think that's more at the council level now, and I'm happy to follow up and get you that draft legislation. I think it's not draft, it's legislation that's been proposed, Neil.